YouTube's favorite corn star, Emily Willis, has gone into a coma.
I got extremely close with Emily Willis. It's bad, actually. She was incredible. We had a really great relationship and friendship, but she had her own struggles. And she recently, while at rehab, fell into a coma, and she's been in a vegetative state.
This happened after she was at a rehab center for her ketamine addiction. But recently, some more information has been released that makes this a little bit more tricky. But in order for us to really understand Emily's situation, we need to go back to the beginning. Emily gained a lot of notoriety and attention when she was on Aiden Ross's stream.
Do you know how many we have live right now?
No, I have no idea.
133,000.
Wait, it was just at 84. What happened?
No, it was at 44. It'll go back up. That's how Twitch is. The numbers are like that. So you have 133,000 people just looking at you.
Wow, fun time.
Mike Malak, who knew Emily personally, recently gave more details on her situation.
Emily was in treatment for a continued, chronic issue with addiction, same kind of thing that I dealt with, different drugs, and had some sort of situation happen where she went into a coma. Evidently, the toxicology came back clear, and that and drugs didn't play a role in her actually having this situation happen.
And it's for that reason more people are questioning what actually happened to Emily. Recently, more details were released, stating that Emily is permanently disabled and that her family is now suing the treatment center. But one of the most sad things about this situation is how her role in the adult entertainment industry put her in this position. Again, here's one of her good friends, Mike, mentioning that.
I have started to really realize the impact that the adult industry has on the girls in the space. Emily Willis, bro. Really, really fucked up situation, dude.
To give more context, for those of you who don't know, Mike is a co-host of Impulsive with Logan Paul. He's dated around the adult entertainment industry and has a pretty good grasp of the realities of that being your job. And to be honest, a lot of people aren't sure how girls or guys end up getting into this situation. I found a good clip of Emily being on a podcast called Plug Talk with Adam22, where he asks this exact question. Why did you get into the industry?
You say that it was, did you want the fame? Did you want the money and the independence? Did you want to actually just explore your own sexuality?
I think it was... I just got this rush from doing it, of being in front of a camera. And I just got this rush out of it, and I wanted to do it.
I'm sure everything's clear in retrospect, but just her saying, I wanted to get a rush out of it, or I got a rush from it, it was honestly probably way too early to tell for the people in her life. But for someone that has a proclivity to doing exciting things, risky things, is probably more likely to engage in other activities, which could involve illegal substances. But before we really start to speculate what actually happened, let's learn a little bit more about what actually happened to Emily when she was at that retreat center. Now, according to the lawsuit, it says Emily was in a semi-conscious state after suffering severe brain damage following a cardiac arrest at Summit Malibu Treatment Center. Despite promises to closely monitor the actress, whose real name is Litzly Lara Benaloso, I probably butchered that, the suit claims that the staff observed Emily's rapid decline over several days, but failed to send her to the hospital for advanced medical care. Now, my sister's a nurse, and when I explained the situation to her, she said usually in situations like this, nurses get the tough end of the bargain. And again, there are absolutely exceptions to this rule. Neglect is real and it does happen. But in general, if you're a staff member at the treatment center, you're not gonna sit around and watch someone decline without doing anything. There's probably details to this story that we're missing, but let's continue. Although it's unclear how long she had been in this state before being discovered, the nurse dialed 911, initiated CPR, and called for additional help. The responding paramedics reportedly performed CPR between 30 and 40 minutes before obtaining a heartbeat, but by then, the prolonged lack of oxygen to her brain had left Emily comatose. I don't know if any of you guys are CPR certified. Let me know if you are in the comments below. I was at one point. My registration expired. I can't tell you how exhausting performing CPR for 30 to 45 minutes would be. I mean, obviously with it being a paramedic, I'm sure they had the actual bag. I'm sorry I don't have any technical language here. So I'm sure that made things a little bit easier. But performing CPR for 30 to 40 minutes. I mean, she must have been gone, especially for the nurse who you would assume have CPR experience. She was probably performing that on her before the paramedics even came. And then having an additional 30 to 40 minutes of CPR. I mean, she must have been in a really, really bad state for that to happen. I'd imagine if I found someone unconscious, I would do everything in my power to get them back. You know what I mean? If you're a nurse and you're working at a treatment facility, I would have assumed you'd have CPR experience, but at the very least, you'd have some bit of care for someone, and you would do everything you could in your power to help that person survive. You know what I mean? So I think there's a piece that we're missing. I do think it's not good that they found her unconscious. Again, we don't know how long she was out for, but this is a really sad situation. But what makes this even more sad is she was a great person.
I love Emily. I love her. She is one of the best souls, just the sweetest souls that just, back to the beginning of this conversation, got tangled up in the demons of all of this life, you know?
The sad part about this is because she was a corn star in the adult entertainment industry, I think she'll get a lot less sympathy than if she was just a normal YouTube star. You know what I mean? And again, I don't want to get into societal views and da-da-da, but in this case, Emily was a human being and she went through this. I don't know if anyone watching has gone through an addiction themselves or even has family members wrapped up in this kind of addiction, but there is a lot of complexity to it. Can you imagine the price, even just for the lease of that kind of building? It would be astronomical. You would assume that the medical service, right, the care that you would get there would be world class. If you are checking yourself into a rehab center and you have a lot of money and you're successful, you would want to find the best one, right? You'd want to go to the most prestigious, picturesque, like they said. You're not going to a place where people ignore you. You know what I mean? She allegedly used 5 to 6 grams of something that rhymes with ketamine per day for a year and suffered from bladder problems and night terrors. Previously diagnosed with severe mental health conditions, she was on antidepressants and anxiety medication. I'm going to assume most people don't have a good grasp of how much 5 to 6 grams of ket actually is, I being one of them, but I'm just going to take his word for it. And to make things even more intense was how much she weighed. Now, if 5 to 6 grams of ket is enough for a normal person at a normal weight to be seeing aliens, I cannot imagine what it does to someone that weighs 100 pounds or less. And that's doing it every single day. I mean, I cannot imagine the mental state Emily was in before this happened. But as sad as this is Mike talking about how it's the addict that needs to decide to get help themselves.
Any addict watching this, like, it's on you. It's on them. It's only when they're so sick of it and they can't take it anymore. They can't live one more day in that shame, that pain, that sadness, that despair, and they decide to pull themselves out of that pit.
Mike then went on to say, it's almost harder that she's a vegetable now because there's almost no closure with her condition, right? Because if someone passed away, you could do the funeral and you can kind of make amends. But when she's in this state, you can't necessarily do that.
Seeing someone kept alive by a machine is a very, very hard thing to cope with. It's almost like this purgatory. You know what I'm saying? That, like, you're just, you as a person, you're praying and hoping every day that things are going to get better, but I just don't know, man. I don't know how to even approach it.
So up to this point, I was team treatment center, but now after some more details, I'm starting to question. It says Morris expressed outrage, stating, eventually she grew so dehydrated that a nurse could not measure her blood pressure. By this time, her acute medical distress had been recorded, and yet they left the decision to go to an urgent care up to a patient who was suffering incredible pain and could not care for her own well-being. There was no excuse for their failure to obtain medical and psychological care. He continued detailing the tragic aftermath of the cardiac arrest that occurred 26 hours later, which left Emily in a vegetative state. According to the lawsuit, she had since regained consciousness and can track things with her eyes, but remains unable to move or speak, confined to a care home in Utah. Morris added, "We hope this lawsuit will spur real change in how treatment centers handle critical cases. Too many patients who should have received life-saving interventions are being lost to negligence." Although I did find a good point from someone on X saying, "This shows there's more to the story. It's horrible this happened, but it seems like she was in bad condition before checking into rehab. She was on a downhill slope and was told to go elsewhere for urgent care. A rehab clinic isn't equipped to handle life-saving measures." I think this case is really going to come down to that. Is a rehab center responsible for these extreme cases? Because honestly, for me, I can see both sides. I don't know about you guys in the comments, but I think one thing that might affect this is her prior working experience, to be honest. I think it'd be difficult to not subconsciously look at Emily a different way because of her past. Although I do want to defend Emily a little bit here. There are girls out there, for example, Jack Doherty's girlfriend, that is directly promoting her OF to kids, which in my opinion is inherently nefarious. But with Emily, it was a little bit different. Here's Mike explaining it.
There was no OnlyFans links. There was no. There was a little bit of nuance there.
What does that mean?
It means there's people who promote adult content, and there's people that promote content by way of personalities who happen to create adult content. When I make content with them, obviously with the goal of driving views to my content, it was never to say, yo, get in this like super skimpy outfit and hold a sign with your OF link on it. I could have done. Do you know how much money I would have right now?
A lot.
Do you have any idea how much money I would have right now if tens? If
you promoted links, yeah.
Not even just promoted links. What if I'd said,
agent them?
Yo, the first ever Lana tape back is me and Lana, and by the way, Lana, we're splitting half and half. Do you not think that was not an option? She was about to go back anyways before we started dating. It was everything was I could have gone as deep as I wanted into that space. I was the mainstream, besides Adam, the mainstream contact for that space. Could have gone as far as I wanted. Never dropped the link. Never said, yo, follow this, whatever, or promoted X, Y, and Z. Never did it.
Mike goes on to clean his hands per se, but I think this does affect how people should perceive Emily. She's not a modern day OF girl.
It's like, dude, the only reason Skybree, Lana, any of those people exist is because of the men in the audience.
You can't point your finger.
It is a which one came first, the chicken or the egg situation for a lot of guys, because if, say, the content didn't exist, right, then the audience wouldn't exist either.
Bottom line, this is a very sad case. My prayers go out to Emily and her family, and I really hope she can go back to her right mind. But if you thought this was the only intense thing happening on the internet, you would be wrong. A kid did a TikTok challenge and ended up taking the lives of 6 people. He was recently sentenced for 12 years in prison, and people don't think it's long enough. If you want to learn more, check out this video right here, and I'll see you in the next one.